Welcome to the Vietnam War and Foreign Conflicts Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to educate our future generations about the Vietnam War and subsequent foreign conflicts. To enhance the experience, the Foundation is currently working to establish a new museum to house our collection of Vietnam War artifacts that will be open to the public. The intent of the museum is to promote healing, show gratitude to those who served, and bring a hands-on experience to those interested in learning about the history of the Vietnam War. If you are interested in learning more about the Foundation, please visit our website at VietnamWarFoundationMuseum.com.
Remembering those who served, those who fought, and those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, the Vietnam War and Foreign Conflicts Foundation. Today we're here for the Vietnam Experience. John Harrison?
Good afternoon. I'm John Harrison. I was a platoon leader and company commander with the 101st Airborne Division, the 3rd of the 506. If you're in the military, you'll know what I just said. If you're not, you'll be confused by another military acronym. However, with me today is Bobby Cabell. You just heard him. He was a crew chief on a Chinook helicopter. And Larry Saunders, United States Marine Corps combat engineer. Today also by telephone and his book, we have Bob Ford, who was a pilot with the Army from July of '67 through July of 1968. He flew over 1,000 missions as aircraft, mostly as aircraft commander in a Huey. He was at the Siege of Khe Sanh, and he managed to be in Vietnam for both Tet and Mini-Tet in 1968. His book, which I have here on the desk, is Black Cat 2-1. That would be his call sign, Black Cat. And one thing that the infantry always said was they loved to hear the helicopters coming because you were either getting food, ammunition, or better yet, leaving. All of which were a good idea as far as we were concerned. Bob Ford, why don't you tell us a little bit about your book?
Well, thank you very much, because I am very proud of it. I had some time and was highly motivated after my kids were grown, and I had dedicated 2 years to get it written. It was always on the back of my mind, and I did it in order to honor all those with whom I served. We were all cut the same, highly dedicated, and 100% volunteers. And I was wanting to make sure everybody knew that part in history, where we were, what happened. And number two, I wanted to let my kids know what I did. I never had a chance to tell them. You know, they were such wonderful kids growing up. I never got them aside and said, "Hey, let me tell you a war story." I really just never did. I enjoyed them so much, and so now they know, and when they whoever looks at books, critiques books, and so forth, I wasn't surprised after they did it, but they listed my book in Amazon not only as an autobiography but Vietnam history. And then I got to thinking, they're right. That detachment that I commanded out of Way was part of history that never happened before and never happened again. It was 100% autonomous, and we, my 3 ships, 8 pilots, flew every 3 out of 4 days, and we covered 2,000 square miles. And you Marines know exactly what I'm talking about. When we went from Phu Bai to Laos to the DMZ and back, 2,000 square miles we covered, and we did Air Force rescue, covered the Vietnamese Special Forces, the Vietnamese First Division, which I thought was the best one in the country, and certainly all the Marines whenever they needed help. So we were busy day and night all the time, and I'm very proud of our record. I really am. And we have been told that by those that were there, that were higher officers, that they never had seen a autonomous unit performed so well. Well, to tell you the truth, we kind of enjoyed it. We really did. We looked forward to everything we did. We looked forward to what might come up. We look forward to the adventure. We look forward to contact with the enemy. And even though it was dangerous, obviously, but every day was, it was around those that were absolutely ready to go every day. I could talk about any specific of my book, but I know we have other people here. But any question you have for me, I'm ready.
I think everybody who was in Vietnam at the time has a reaction to the sound of a Huey going over. To this day, I'm like Pavlov's dog. My mouth waters because it usually means I got chow, or sometimes a beer, either of which was good. You flew dust off, and the first casualty I had, we were up in the Cambodian highlands, and we blew one tree down and created like in a 300-foot tall forest with a 45-degree slope. And this guy came over in the darkness at night, came straight down. His two door gunners are hanging out, watching the tips of the helicopter to make sure he doesn't hit a tree on the way down. It was that tight in LZ. And we threw two bodies on. One of them lived and the other one did not. But that guy held a hover off the ground. His blades on the upside of the hill were probably only a foot or two off the ground, whereas the bird itself was, about chest high for us. So we literally had to throw these guys up and on. But he held his hover and he got, a couple 100 pounds on there, and then he goes straight up and leaves. It was the damnedest bit of flying I ever saw in my life.
You're right. When you became aircraft commander, you really got good really fast. But what those door gunners were doing, they were making sure that trail water didn't hit anything.
Well,
because when that hits something, things can happen pretty fast and not good. The main rotor blade can take a lot of damage. And by him coming down there, he probably was empty when he came, and he burned some fuel. And by putting those guys on, he had plenty of power to get out of there, especially if he had an H model.
I don't know which one it was. It was dark.
All of us got good quick.
Well, if you didn't get good quick, you weren't around. I mean, that's a factoid of.
I put it this way: I got so much better after 500 hours and 500 missions as an aircraft commander, but I didn't know it. I always thought I was God's gift to aviation, but you found out that you really did better the more missions you flew.
Sure. Absolutely. And Bob, just like you say, the humming of that Huey coming in, and John just mentioned that, it was nothing like a Chinook coming in. And even today, whenever you hear a Chinook go over, it's a distinct sound. It's like a flying Greyhound bus. We were a big target,
exactly right. They had the same sound. It's like two Hueys instead of one. You're exactly correct.
Absolutely. And we was flying supply and support, so we was picking up a lot of troops also.
They also put out a 70-mile-an-hour ground wind when they come in for a landing, which is about the same as a hurricane. Not a big hurricane,
it is,
but a hurricane.
Exactly right. I've heard 80 actually. So you're right. It really creates a lot before you get into that ground effect.
Yes.
Huey not so much, but the Chinook, the amount of dust that they could blow up in a short period of time was unbelievable.
It is.
Larry, did you work with Hueys?
Yes, I work. We were, like I was telling Bob, up at Way, we were working on the airstrip up there, and actually I was real lucky. I never got to ride in one because it was usually a fatality or something. So I never got to ride out of here, and I was kind of proud in a way that I didn't get to that point. But yes, we worked around, and also I was on the DMZ, and I'm sure Bob can count for this. A lot of Hueys got shot down on the DMZ, and
that's right.
At one point we were able to take the bodies off of trucks that had been damaged and made skids, and we actually pulled skids into the DMZ where it was they felt it was safer than the helicopters getting in. So we took dozers and bodies off of trucks and carried supplies into the DMZ. So I didn't really, in my tour, I was not really in much combat other than something like that. I was one of the more lucky ones, but I was building roads and airstrips, ammunition dumps and that type thing. So I had a background of construction before I went into service, and so I was lucky in a way that I was able to do something I enjoyed doing and also knew a little bit about what I was doing. Yeah. So
well, and did it good. I said anybody in engineering and the combat engineers, CBs, you name them. All I said was one sentence. Boy, did I mean it in my book. I said they did it good and they did it fast.
Yes.
Yeah, we had, just like everybody was a team in Vietnam, regardless what your MOS was. Everybody was a team, and we all worked together.
Can I insert this? The reason I flew so much during Tet, I flew 62 missions into the battle, was because the Marines could not fly because they had minimums. And the conditions were never higher than 300-foot ceiling and a quarter of a mile visibility. And I knew how to fly low level to get in and out of there because, that was my area of operation.
Right.
And that's the reason I flew so much for the Marines during the Tet Offensive from the 4th of February through the 19th of February.
Well, you talk about they have actually flight rules or whatever you want to call it with ceiling limitations, but there were lots of different rules. I have a friend of mine, young kid actually, went in the service, and they cannot call airstrikes in, and their airstrikes are a lot more accurate than the ones we did, which could be fascinating in a bad way. But they cannot call airstrikes in as close as we routinely called airstrikes in Vietnam. There was no limitation.
Oh, I believe that.
It was.
I believe that. You guys were really good, and you had some very experienced artillery. And I don't know if you ever called naval gunfire.
I did. I did. We had an Anglico team with us, and we called naval gunfire. I had as a second lieutenant infantry. I had my
Newport News that was up there in that area at the time. That and the New Jersey, that were noted for their accuracy and willingness to fire. And you get an experienced guy, forward air observer, or guy on the ground knows exactly where he is. Those guys were darn good.
Those 12-inch guns, when they go overhead, when the shells go overhead, it sounds like a freight train. We never called in from them, but they did fly over us because they can shoot 25 miles.
Yeah.
And accurately. Yeah. And they are guns. They are not cannons. They do not howitzers. They do not lob the shell. They shoot like a rifle. So very good.
Their muzzle speed is close to a 50 caliber. I mean, they go. Just put it this way, they're really, really something else. Yeah, you're correct.
Bobby, did you have 50 cals on your Chinook?
We had the M60s on the door gunners and everything. We was in Quy Nhon and Da Nang and up through that area. And we was picking up a lot of Koreans and also U.S. troops also to be going out on missions. We would take, water blizzards out there and food supplies. But the main part is when you come back in the afternoon, after all that noise and hydraulic fluid, you have to repair your helicopter or check it over. And most of the time you were hit at one time or another, and you never even felt it because of the noise and the vibration. But it was something that we got used to, and Vietnam was an experience we'll never forget. It was definitely an experience.
You got that right.
Oh, yeah.
Larry, when you worked with choppers, how did they work with you as a combat engineer?
We didn't work directly with the Hueys, other than, like I say, we were building airstrips, and they were coming in while we were working and that type thing. And there again, I was fortunate that we didn't really need them. We felt like that they were, better used somewhere else. I didn't really have a direct influence with the Hueys other than building airstrips. And when I was working on the DMZ, of course, they were flying in when they could and that type stuff. But no, I didn't have any direct dealing with any of the helicopters.
My battalion was based at Van Thiet, which is on the coast of South Vietnam. And periodically they would come up and shoot some mortars at us or rockets or something. And this one guy, I'm sure he got the highest Viet Cong award because he landed one in the battalion, in the ammo dump for the entire province for the Viets, and started a fire. And then it blew up. And if you've ever been near an ammo dump when it goes up, it is a tremendously focusing experience.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it is just remarkable. I did not know then, but sound can actually knock you down. You feel it. You don't hear it when it gets that loud.
Yes.
In any event, it blew artillery shells and infantry ammunition and rockets all over the field. And the engineers, combat engineers, came in and they said that just walking around could set that stuff off because it had been made sensitive by being near an explosion already. Nonetheless, they had that airfield operating, combat engineers, same thing that Larry was, only Army combat engineers. They had that airport operating in 3 hours. And they were bringing in C-123s, which is a fairly small 2-engine bird, and they would come in and they would land and they would stop. I mean, they could take off almost in no distance and land almost in no distance, full emergency stop. It was exciting. But that was one thing. You talk about, you learned, everybody there very quickly became very good at what they did.
Oh, gosh, yes.
That experience, everyone become an expert after just a short period of time. You think your training in the United States here and at these camps were good, but when you get in Vietnam or in a war area, it was definitely on-the-job training and you learn quickly.
Ample motivation to do it right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Larry, did you ever clear mines or clear?
We had one of my platoons in our company. That's what they did. That's all they did is clear mines.
Clear mines. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. close as I come to one, my dozer. I was pushing and looked, and one mortar round was rolled up in front of my dozer blade. I come to a quick stop, real quick. But yeah, we had one platoon that actually, they did mine search for mines, and also they built bridges. And this type of stuff, we call them nail benders. And but yeah, one of our operations on the DMZ was that I had a loader up there, and I actually dig out a hole about 30 by 30, and it built a 20 by 20 box out of real 3 or 4 inch thick boards, and then I'd cover it back up, and that's where the guys would go in at night doing mortar attacks and this type of stuff. So that's kind of what I was doing. Like I say, I was fortunate I didn't actually get in any combat battles or anything, but we were certainly there.
They said at Khe Sanh that the Marine engineers there had the best bunkers.
Oh yes, we had good bunkers. All of us had good bunkers. We took care of ourselves first.
Well, you can't take care of us if you're not alive. So there is that thought. There is that thought. All right, let's get back to you, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Now you flew mostly dust-offs.
Well, we didn't call ourselves dust-off. We did medevac a lot. But the reason the dust-off, what I heard, did not have door gunners, and but they had some gunship support.
That's correct.
We never flew any mission with gunship. Matter of fact, there weren't any up there at all. These door gunners were all second tour volunteer infantrymen that looked forward to contact with the enemy, and that's why they volunteered to come up and fly in my unit. And the crew chiefs that came up, of course, they also manned one of the machine guns, but they could not come up there unless they volunteered. Nobody was ever required to come up. And as a result, I had the best and the most, and by far the most motivated and highly accurate. But on all the medevacs, All you had to do is keep your men informed. And you did it by letting them know what's going on, and they listened to all the radio traffic. They were hooked up to all the radios, just like I was. So they heard just what I did. And they were so experienced that but without me telling them, at least 80% of the time, they knew where the enemy was going to be before we even got close. And they were prepared, and they put out suppressive fire as soon as we got with any kind of range, or if they saw a muzzle flash.
I think
But dust off might be a little bit different on what we did, but I never had any cover, a gunship cover, much less a Air Force A1E cover or anything like that.
that would have been nice to have.
But yeah, medevac was always something that we looked forward to doing because we knew we were going to help the guys on the ground. And one thing we built our reputation was after we got everything done, we'd either go back and bring in water, or batteries, or fire some suppressive fire for them where no enemy was. And the troops on the ground just loved us for that.
Yes.
Troops on the ground already had an affinity for choppers of any type, because they were always American choppers, of course. But I can't believe, I'm not doubting you, but it is difficult to comprehend flying dust-off medevac missions around Huey during Tet without any support. That took brass something or other.
Well, we did. But for one thing, there was no way a B-model gunship, which ours were, would ever be able to keep up with us. And if they got lost, they're lost. And there wasn't any way to keep visual contact flying that fast, that low, and that kind of weather.
Right.
And so I never requested and never received any gunship support at all.
I used to see them taking off.
There were times when those guys on the ground, not necessarily during Tet at the time, but in other situations, that they preferred us over a flight of F-4s because we were so accurate.
Wow.
The F-4s, you drop napalm or 500-pounders, and you got to watch what you're doing. But we got in there right close with them.
For the people watching this, a 500-pound bomb is also called a slick because it is an unguided bomb. And napalm is also unguided and has a tendency, not a very delightful tendency, to skip sometimes when it lands, and you don't know where that sucker's going to blow up. Mm-hmm. But you do know when it does blow up.
Yeah, get your attention for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of napalm dropped. I saw my share of it, I'm sure, but you're exactly correct. I always wondered, they may have hit the target, but boy, what the heck else did they get? Because that thing, once it skipped, you're dropping flames that were 3 times the amount of what was dropped right on target. Yeah, it's a brutal situation because you had to be very accurate and know exactly what the situation is on the ground.
Exactly right.
That's right.
Good. Well, when did you write your book, Bob?
It was in 2013. Let's see, 15. I published it in 2015, and I was so glad I got it done. I wrote it down, and I had 20 copies I made at Kinko's. I was going to give to a couple of friends and my kids. And one of my kids lives in Dallas, and she gave it to a professional editor. And all she had was the picture of that Polaroid picture that's on the front of the book. And she read that book through and said, "Oh my gosh, I've got the publisher for you." And she turned me over to this publisher, and then things really started happening after that. Got it organized and got the book because everybody that read it liked it.
So,
And I think the reason they liked it is because, for one thing, it was true, and another thing, it was exactly the way we were.
So the book we're talking about is...
What about the profanity and the vulgarity and the disrespect? I said, well, it's not there because that's just... this is the way we were.
Yeah.
Yep.
The book is Black Cat 2-1. I got a copy on the desk here. Tells the story of flyers in Hueys. We called them angels in Vietnam.
Now, the reason let me just tell you real quick, the reason I had to put that dash in there because the normal person would say Black Cat 21 if they read it
Right.
without the dash. And over the radio, over tactical radio, you never say 21 or 47. It's 21 or 47. That way there's always clarity and you don't make mistakes, especially when you're getting coordinates or radio frequencies like that. You cannot screw it up. And there's so many numbers and letters that sound just alike. You say them individually. And so that's the reason I had to put the dash, so any person that wasn't strictly military and familiar with tactical radio would interrupt the 2 and the 1.
Right.
And I'll explain that later. And, of course, all the letters are phonetically said, not A, B, C, D. They sound just alike.
All right, Charlie Alpha Tango.
Well, speaking of the book, Bob, I want to certainly appreciate the books that you've donated to our museum, and
Dang right. Glad to do it.
We've sold quite a few, and we also give some to special people that come by that it really meant so much to them, and it really means a lot to us that you supplied.
If you get low, well, you know how to get hold of me, and I'll send the case up there ASAP.
Okay, well, we know that, and we do certainly appreciate the books that you have donated to us.
And hopefully to see you one day shortly, Bob.
Yeah, we hope to get to meet in person somewhere. So we look forward to
That'd be nice. It really would. It really would. I enjoy meeting people. I seek out actually, and during Veterans Day, Memorial Day, Vietnam Recognition Day, I get asked all the time to come, and a couple reasons because I stay current and I enjoy it, and number 2, that I still wear my uniform. I wore in the cockpit.
Oh, great. Oh, that's great. That means you stayed in shape.
Yeah, I can still wear the socks I wore. The rest of it's somewhat more difficult to get into. I was still a kid.
Right, tight.
20 years old.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a real pleasure, and I know every one of us here on the telephone we all cut the same. We're there to do our job, and we did our duty and the best we could, and we had no expectations but to serve our country when duty called us, and we didn't have any expect for any reward except the nation's thanks. And you guys getting me on the phone here is a big thanks, and I sure appreciate it.
Well,
Our pleasure, Bob.
Our pleasure, Bob. You have a good day, and
I'll do it, my friend. Call me anytime.
Okay, Bob. Thanks again. Really
All right,
appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Okay,
you.
brother. Be blessed.
All right.